Grab some popcorn and get a front row seat because it's time for a video you've been waiting for. The 15th anniversary of Kwelp to do live stories. Hello guys, LJPCBM speaking. Welcome to episode 2 of Live Stories. And today we're going to be talking to you guys about my life as with the NewsHour. Now, if you don't know what the NewsHour is, folks, now it originally came out as Robin and Jim first started team forces when they gathered together for Watergate hearings in May of 1973. Interviewed, I don't know what it was at the time, but they just started taping. They did report on Samuel Ellis. I'm not sure who he was at the time. Talks about this whole talk about court, blah blah blah, the Watergate hearings at the time. Said that we're gathered here today, blah blah blah, and all that good stuff. That's where Robin and Jim got started for me and became friends, and that's how I really inspired me to do this. And then 1975 came, where it came to be the Robert McNeil Report in 1975. And then when we began, Jim, one of my inspirations, my very first inspiration at the time on television, which we'll talk about in the later point in the episode, was the Washington correspondent at that time frame. And he was, and then it changed. Name change came to be the McNeil Report in 1976, and symbol in 1970, and then it was one story a night for just one, and I was just like, I never saw this until McNeil until Annette Miller told me about this, and they sent me a copy of the McNeil Report. And then, before that happened, I saw one story a night in 2011 when I saw a news report, October 2011, when I saw one story a night thing from newspapers in 1978 of March. And that's the first time I saw McNeil Report full episode. That was the first time I watched it. That inspired me to do a second pilot of LJPCBM TV at the time. But yeah, it was a huge thing. And then 1983 came when they get on luxury became the McNeil NewsHour. At first, we hadn't saw my documentaries changing, went back and out some such Kwelp in 2006, 2007 changes back in my own history. I learned my lesson with that. But that's just me. 1983 is when the McNeil NewsHour changed the name. Then all of a sudden, Jim Lehrer got a heart attack in 1983 December. I was like, when I saw this on the NewsHour, the 15 years NewsHour on VHS, I was not heartbroken. I was shocked when I first heard about it. I did not know what it was. He quit smoking cigars, and he just lost some weight when I first heard about it. And then after it was on the documentary when I first saw about it on VHS, called My Heart, Your Heart. I saw the NewsHour's 50th anniversary documentary called on VHS, and that's why I purchased it months later. Got My Heart, Your Heart. That's where I first heard about My Heart, Your Heart at the time, so yeah. Then 1995, after 12 years of all of that happened, 15 years of NewsHour and all that good stuff, and all the reporting on all the good activities, Rob McNeil, one of my other inspirations, retired from the NewsHour. That changed up to be the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer. And that happened 5 years later, when I got a chance to watch the NewsHour on television. Not in this spot on my computer desk you saw today, but in here. That was the first. If you saw the spots in my room difference, you haven't saw everything like this television green screen exists back in the day. When I first heard Jim Lehrer, okay, this is my story, okay. You saw the television. This is an analog television you saw back in the day. There was a VCR when I turned on the TV, changed the channel to channel 9. At the time, that was not actually 440 back in the day when I heard about a cable box. It was channel 9 when I first watched the NewsHour. I mean, during that time frame, I've watched Mark Brown's very old Arthur. At that time frame. And then afterwards, when all of a sudden, they're saying, coming up next, join Jim Lehrer on the NewsHour. I thought it would be coming on the weekends as well. And that was until 2013. But, no. That was the weekday news show. At the time, so, yeah. But then, when Jim Lehrer came on television, I was freaking shocked. When I first watched it. That was the first time I watched Jim on television. And we heard the news sawing this. And it blew my mind. Sawing the news globe and for the first time in the NewsHour going like this and Jim Lehrer with his name on it. Closed caption logo, and then all of a sudden you hear this date going around. The first time I watched it was 2000 at the time. And he just said this: "Good evening, I'm Jim Lehrer on the NewsHour tonight," and that blew me away. That just blew me away when I first heard the news for the first time in my life, period. I mean, Jim was my very first inspiration when I first watched him on television. He was the first newsman to watch ever in my lifetime. I've never heard of him before. I saw him on television. I'm like, PBS NewsHour is my life. That was like 9 years later when I discovered PBS NewsHour was a thing. Okay? But then, it was not PBS NewsHour. It was NewsHour Jim Lehrer at the time. It was on TV magazines, all that stuff. But NewsHour Jim Lehrer was on television that time frame. Oh my god. I've experienced it to this day. And then after, in the early days in my life watching the NewsHour, he just said, and that's all following some of the news, this Monday for Friday thing. I do not know what day it was at the time. I haven't watched the NewsHour yet, but this is my first time watching it. When he says, and that's all following some of the news, this day. I can't remember what it was. He said D. But that's just me. At that time frame. But that's just me. In that story. But fast forward to 2002. And then at that time, that was way after 9/11 happened. I will get to that in another episode of Live Stories, okay? 2002. I was watching the NewsHour again. But this time, I was in the trampoline. Bouncing, you know. I wasn't doing anything with the trampoline in that time frame. I was at home, not watching the news on my thing, watch the news. I was doing outside activities, trying to finish up my final days of West Forest Summit, so to say goodbye to some students, primetime students, that is, Miss Spots, everybody, and I don't know what it was in that time. I can't remember elementary school West Forest anymore, to say at least, because I was watching Jim, you know. But back and forward to 2004, I recorded NewsHour for the first time. But this time, Gwen Eiffel was there. Late Gwen Eiffel was there. She's just saying this: "Good evening, I'm Gwen Eiffel. Jim Lehrer is on vacation." And she didn't recognize me at the time when I first recorded her on television. That was the very first time I watched NewsHour on television. I was I was 9 when I recorded NewsHour on television. But when I get a chance to record NewsHour, when I watched NewsHour, I was 5 years old. I mean, I reunited with the NewsHour the first time, and that was December of 2004. That was like weeks right after assassination of Dimebag Darrell. I'll talk about Pantera and most Heavy Metal days and another time. But back what I was saying about heavy metal, back what I was saying about NewsHour, okay? Excuse me. 2004, okay? NewsHour was when Gwen Alpha was there. She was not ready to take off graduation of the finished second edition of George W. Bush at that time frame. The 43rd President of the United States. So, yeah. That was too busy. Didn't know about politics back then. I was so busy getting ready to make content, really. And that was my first time doing content since 2006. I discovered this website called YouTube. But back when I was saying about fast forward to May 2006. But before we get to May 2006, okay? It was February 2006, okay, when I got the chance to watch the NewsHour. Record it every time. It was Super Bowl fight 2006. Actually, 2005, I accidentally switched the channel from Toon Disney. I will get to that another time. To a NewsHour show. It was a late night show saying, and that's all the news for the night. I'm Jim Blair. Thank you and good night. And then all of a sudden the news came off. Blah blah blah. I missed the news show. The movie was on at another day. Stitched the movie, but then all of a sudden the news is off. Didn't know what the news was on there. I missed it. Everything. We'll get to that in another point, another day. But right now, another life story. There's another story I want to talk about. 2006, in February. February 2006 is where I recorded NewsHour Jim Blair. This is the first in over a year that I recorded the NewsHour. That really got me hooked over time to watch NewsHour Jim Blair every time. Jim Blair was my first inspiration. When he said, "Good evening, I'm Jim Blair," and somebody fill in for Mark Shields. David Brooks was there at the time. And I was surprised when Paul Shigo wasn't there. That was my first inspirations with Paul Shigo. When I first heard about the NewsHour without Paul Shigo. 2003 was when I first heard about it. 2003 was the first time he was reunited with Mark Shields, excuse me. But then 2006, I recorded someone filling in for Mark Shields. That was it, you know. Finding out with Mark Shields and Paul Shigo was my first time watching the news with Jim Blair. 2006 was my first with Tom Albert and David Brooks. 2007, May 2006, however, when I recorded Fetch with Rothman, however, and Arthur celebrating its 10th anniversary, however, the NewsHour decided to bring a new theme song, a new reorganized version of the NewsHour. Unfortunately, they bring a theme song that I like. Unfortunately, from 1999 to 2006, and that's just plain dumb to me. But then months later, nearly weeks later, I discovered this website called YouTube. That is a good thing when I discovered this website called YouTube at the time, but that's how I got the chance to watch YouTube videos, everything like that, because YouTube was a good thing when I got to watch it, and bam, YouTube was there for me. One of my first videos is a Julie Woodruff and Rob McNeil video. Julie Woodruff wasn't there when I first watched her, And but Julie Woodruff was back a month prior to my watching of YouTube Discovery. But, you know, that's just me. But then 2007 came, and I watched, and NewsHour's and Julie Woodruff was interviewing somebody else. That's why I formed the company. But we'll get to the comedy in another episode. But anyway, 2008 is where, or 2009, however, is where they switched up to change the name to PBS, the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer, to PBS NewsHour. It's where I got freaked out. I don't know why, but it got me freaked out a little bit. Not since I'm making PBS NewsHour into the changing names. 2009, when I got recorded NewsHour with Jim Lehrer for the first time, but believe me, NewsHour with Jim Lehrer is my favorite show. But when they changed the name to PBS NewsHour in December 2009, I haven't got a chance to record any NewsHour episodes in a long time. I'm sorry, it totally freaking me out, like, ah! Like that, yeah, because I want to talk about this in the NewsHour movie in another time, but it was scary as hell. Excuse my language, but it was scary, you know? I opened the door. I don't know what it was in the time, but I did. We'll talk about the NewsHour movie. I did mean to do that, but it did not happen. But I did delete some NewsHour episodes. Last episodes before PBS NewsHour at the time. Then 2010, however, I recorded the PBS NewsHour episodes for my DirecTV DVR. That was my 10th anniversary became PBS NewsHour. And when it came to me to change the name. I want to try to learn my lesson, by the way. 2011, however, is where I became very shocked. And that's how I wanted to make the NewsHour movie. Jim Lehrer was officially retired from the NewsHour after 36 years of being anchorman. And stepped out, is what I'm saying. Because I want him to... I've been praying for him multiple times for the past... over the years. I've missed him, you know. But then 2012 came. He wrote... my mom wrote... letters to the NewsHour, and then I met Lehrer told her about my autistic life, saying that we got so many autistic people in his life. I mean, I was only 16 or 17 at the time when I first heard about Annette Miller. She was great. She was a great vice president of the NewsHour. But then mom told her to buy more NewsHour episodes. Some of the NewsHour episodes will no longer exist. Some of them were not. One of the episodes, however, were there. Two of them from 1975, the Robert McNeil report, will be delivered to my house. Surprisingly, huh? And then after that, 2013 came, and when they celebrated the 40th anniversary of Watergate hearings came, I had to tell Annette Miller the news throughout my email, stating that I'm going to graduate from Windsor Forest. And then I want to invite 2 anchormen coming to see me. And then Annette said this in my personal message, saying that they're not coming to your graduation. They're going to be on vacation in June. So they wanted to wish you graduations. And I told them thank you. Because I did, however, got this signed autograph from me about what they just said to me about how I graduated from high school. And I'm very pleased with the result. But then, July 2013 came. If you had watched my 7-part movie of my trip to Arlington, D.C., I went to see the NewsHour headquarters in person. that was my first experience with the NewsHour. Then in throughout 2015, I was very pleased and not anxious to upload NewsHour episodes to my YouTube channel. Then instead, Annette Miller told me not to do that. I have to delete those, but that way more easier. And then 2016 came. I was at college, become homesick. Then all of a sudden, Gwen Eiffel became very ill. Very ill. I am very shocked and pleased because I'm very know what happens next for Gwen Eiffel, because that was my first time recording TV with NewsHour, and I'm not happy because I was in college when all of a sudden Gwen Eiffel had a battle with cancer, with cancer at the time, and I'll talk about my college life in a moment, like episodes, something like that. Another episode, but right now we'll talk about Gwen Eiffel. Okay, she was in. I'm not sure how many stages in cancer moment. She was in she's losing her battle with cancer. So I've lost words until she died November 14th, which is probably 5 years ago, this past Sunday. I'm supposed to release this on Tuesday, but then I was in lost words that yesterday. But then something happened, but I won't talk about it anymore. However, today was the whatever. Gwen Eiffel died that day, and all of a sudden I got a text from Remix saying that she passed away. I'm like, oh my god, this is very shocking. Very shocking. And I posted in my group saying that she died, and I was very sad about this in my post, and I didn't know her. I just posted in my group, blah, 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 sad. And he said, we'll lose many celebrities, not only her, but also a lot of celebrities. And I agree with Remix, if you watch this now, but also Elon, which I'll talk about another time, losing another president who is on Elon University. If you watch this more, I'll show this for you. But I won't talk about it until another episode. However, Gwen, there's a week-long tribute to Gwen. But yeah, it was a death moment for me, and shocking revenge. I don't know what to do, but NewsHour had a funeral for Gwen. NewsHour, they have to attend it at a church nearby. I haven't attended that funeral, fortunately, because I was too busy with my own content and lack of Patreon. Plus, I haven't done anything with Patreon recently because I was too busy with content. Plus, I was in a dentist with my dentist people, and they wanted me to get rid of my wisdom teeth. And Bob Show told me, look, your special guest writing thing is that day. We'll talk about this another time as well. Right now, it's time for what I experienced about Gwen Eiffel. Okay. It is about my life of Gwen, so I credit her as one of my inspirations. Gwen Eiffel, 1955-2016, which I'll talk about in another episode. Anyway, 2016 was my worst year ever, and it's a devilish year in my life. And there's another thing I want to talk about in this episode. That is also one of the things I want to say about. Then 2017 came, was the 10th year. It's also the part where I can at 2017 to 2019 was where I think about the NewsHour as well. And then come 2020. That was last year actually. Is where I began to feel losing strength. I was at Accra, my job, my current job at Summer Zachary. If you watch this, Travis, for you. Then all of a sudden, that following afternoon, after I got home from work with Travis and Scott, Scott down the wheelchair guy. If you watch this now, Scott, it's for you. And then wanted to work with David on Pressure Luck. And I wanted to get ready for not get ready to replace him with Danny. Something weird happened. It was one of my loss with inspiration. I think Jim Lair died peacefully from his sleep. I was going to say when his sleep recently, but then months later I wanted to say heart attack. Then the day of his death came. That afternoon. When I texted her on that day, okay? I texted her with a nostalgic gif. When it made me laugh. When all of a sudden, when I saw what I saw in the app on Facebook, okay? When it reads, remembering Jim Lair. And I was like, oh my god. Do I have to read this? And then all of a sudden he died. My jaws on this iPad mini here dropped and was shocked. My heart was broken. Beautifully. And it looks like I lose one of my kind of like a second grandfather to me. And also losing a family member to me. And like Robin McNeil, by the way. He is a family member to me. Like always, the NewsHour. Peacefully. The NewsHour and PBS, unlike Charlie Brown, because I hated Charlie Brown, because they aired on PBS this year. Sorry. They are the second family to me. I am lost words about Jim Lair's death. I was crying as hell right now. Excuse my language, but I was crying as hell. But at the time like this, I was in tears, when I heard about this. And after that, that following afternoon, I was on the pier, getting ready to finish up Elgin 2020. Day number 24. It was not 23 at the time. It was 24. But then all of a sudden, I was plugging my VidBox. Plug it in, and then all of a sudden, David, Danny, and some people came up to laugh at me when I was in tears. And that's why I told him it's not funny. It was not, because I wanted to tell him this, okay? It was a shocking day for me. I was not happy at this point. But then all of a sudden, Dave was like to Danny, do you want to play Luke? I'm like, he's like, sure. I'm like, okay, screw this. I am done. I want to get this out of the way to get this point out. And then when there's someone who says, woohoo, I hang up the Discord call. And that's why I put the post on David Falzon's. Originally going to put the Discord server on David Falzon's Fight Games. That's just what they now call it. But then all of a sudden, I posted it on both the David Falzon Discord server and on my Facebook group. It was a shocking day for me. So then, that following evening, I was in tears. I was still in tears, hugging my stepdad. He was the one who told me what happened. I was not happy at this point. I said Jim Lair passed away. And he said, what happened? Oh, I'm not gonna cuss, but he just said, damn, but and he just said to me, how he died. And that's what he told me. He said, I told him, he was asleep. And he just said to me, well, good, it's not anything else, right? And I'm like, yeah, because, months later I said heart attack, because at the time, but that's just me. Which I said early in the episode, that's just me. But anyway. But then, nearly an hour later came. She hugged me to tears. I don't know what happened that time. She just hugged me to tears in her own cozy pajama coat. I don't know what happened, but that's just This is one of my worst afternoons and nights ever in my life. I've been praying so hard. Wanted to type in a conversation that one of the worst Rent Rave episodes ever, and then he did. Brandon Martin did a redo version of Rent Rave, which I pray for him, thankfully. And our trolls suddenly said about Jim Lehrer being on the game show. I deleted it, and then Jordan Little or Brandon Martin deleted it. I want to be Brandon and Jordan as well. If they're watching this, to whatever it was, delete the comment section of the trolls, whatever, because they were being frustrated that night for doing Rent Rave. Suddenly, just while I was bursting into tears, shockingly, on what happened. The following evening, I heard the news, afternoon and evening, I heard the news stating that, about my friend Alex Paris on Ginger. I'll talk about that in the episode, another episode, but that's just me. But, I wasn't, and then that's why I told him Jim Lehrer's passing. He said he would give it a message and after 11. Yeah, I agree with Alex, but that's just me. But then, that same evening when the PBS NewsHour came on at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I watched the NewsHour, and then when the Jim Lehrer report came and the interview came, Robin, Sharon Walkwart, for how I pronounce her last name, and Stephen Justice Breyer, yeah. Justice Stephen Breyer, how you pronounce his last name, but anyway. Their interview about Jim's memory tends to be the best one I have ever witnessed. And I took a 3.5-day breather. I did how it got better until suddenly I was disturbed. I was disturbed when I heard Kobe Bryant's death and crash. I was not happy. I'm not happy the stupid plot. I'll talk about this in another episode again, but that's just me. That's the reason why I got disturbed by that. That's just me. Anyway, after Jim's funeral and everything, and that's why I didn't attend that funeral either. I was getting ready for travel again. But then that following March came. Julie Woodruff said this report saying, when COVID happened, saying, and that's NewsHour for the night. I'm Julie Woodruff. Please stay safe this weekend. Thank you. Good night. And then after all this happened, I was freaking in shock, saying, we're gonna do, what the hell we're gonna do. And this shocking thing happened. June came, I was aggressive, saying I was gonna freak out. And this was all happening for my standards, And that wasn't my plan to do tributes to Jim, at least seeing his grave at all. To me, wash my hands and cover up the mask. That's not how it works for me. I want to see his grave. And unfortunately, when COVID happened, I'm not going to do it. But then 2021 came. And then we'll get fours in 2020. July 2021 came. This was way after I turned 25. Lester Crystal passed away. I was freaking shocked about this. He was one of the executive producers of the NewsHour. I saw this, and that's when I first discovered I watched the NewsHour for the first time. That's how I got shocked with this. I was 5 when I got watched Lester as executive producer of the NewsHour. That's how I got shocked. But then, about 10 months later, 2021, Roger Mudd, he passed away and he was in his 90s. I never knew this guy, but he was shocking. It was shocking. She said to me, I don't know who he is, but he said, don't be sad about him. I'm like, why? But we'll talk about watch one another time. Right now I got some take care of business. I got a lot to take care of. But yeah. And after all this, watching my tribute and other things, yes, Mark Shields, when I did a trip to Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. movie that I did, he recently retired from the NewsHour after all of this. Mark Shields and Gergen and Shields and Go, and Shields and Brooks. And he left suddenly. After all this happened. I met him in 2013. So that's how it all happened. So there you go. But then most of my 2021 came, I was watching the NewsHour. I wasn't because I was so busy with content really. But then in the future, what's my future with LJPCBM Kwelp for the NewsHour? Well, it's been a long, nearly 11 year with the NewsHour movie. I haven't finished it. I haven't done making the project, but then nothing happened. But that's just me. It's been a long journey with me making the movie. So there you go. It's been a long journey for me to do this, and it takes about some time, energy, and it'll take forever to make this. So it takes shots by shot and shot by shot. It'll take some time. Be patient. You don't have to be worried about it, and it will take time. But anyways, guys, that was episode 2 of Life of LJPCBM Kwelp, the 15th year anniversary project, Life Stories, episode 2. Hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy my story regarding the NewsHour. I think it was probably because I saw this in probably years of watching the NewsHour, or is it? But it did, however. I have never seen New PBS NewsHour West before in my life, but I saw it like most of my 2021. Most of 2020 bits and pieces. 2021, some of the parts in the news summary. Sorry, I'm on the West Coast, but anyway. Stay tuned for the next one, episode 3. I'm not sure what episode it's gonna be yet, but I'm telling the date, but I'm not saying what episode it is yet. We'll see what happens. Till next time, it's the Joseph Bye. Peace out, baby. We get more episodes, guys. We soon. Till then, just out. See ya.